Welcome back to College Football Addiction. I've got Drake C. Toll locked on Big 12 with us today to talk about a few different things. But first, let's start where we maybe left off last week, Drake. Utah, a perfect fit for the Big Ten. Are we going back down this road again?
So this is crazy. Jim Williams, he's a reporter who follows expansion more than anything at this point, and he is nails when it comes to reporting on things like this, has posted on Twitter, "Happy Easter to all." This week, he spoke to 3 Big Ten officials who are part of the vetting team who look into possible new members. He says, to sum up what they told me, there's a great deal to like about Utah football, and we feel they would be a good fit, but they are a lock. There is a world, now according to sources, from Jim Williams to other random YouTubers to reporters to fake reporters to the fake news to the burners, there is enough here where there's smoke, there's fire, to understand that Big Ten officials are probably actually eyeing Utah to go to their league. And the quote here from Jim Williams of "it's a lock" is not something that I necessarily agree with. I don't have sources in the trenches, though. I say it all the time to my listeners on my show that I will never once come to the table and say my sources, these sources. I don't have them. I don't want them. I want to react. And when someone who has an inside look into the Big Ten, an inside look into expansion, into realignment, says that Utah to another conference is very possible, I'm at least going to talk about the possibility of it happening and how the Utes could get there. It seems as though the administration, Mark Harlan, would want to make a move like that because of the money, and it would be the Big Ten saying yes, not Utah saying no to the possibility of having a merger moving forward. Utah fans wouldn't be shocked by this. I'm pretty shocked by this. I don't foresee it happening very soon, but according to some sources, it's a lock.
I guess the big question here would be, I asked you this last week, so I'm going to ask it again. Do you feel like there are still other pieces that need to happen, whether it's Florida State, UNC, Virginia, some of the other, Clemson? I don't think Notre Dame's super close, but obviously their name gets tossed around too. Do you feel like this could happen before any of those chess pieces move, or is this kind of a secondary move is maybe the best way to ask it?
Yeah, there's no way this is the marquee school for the Big Ten, with Florida State and Clemson being in limbo, with Miami and North Carolina having issues with the ACC in the future of that conference. Utah, newsflash, you finished 11th in football, 14th in men's basketball, you're last in baseball. What can you bring? What can you bring that the Big Ten does not hit? Well, the Salt Lake City market. Okay, they have LA. They have Seattle. They just added expansion teams that brought them the larger markets that they wanted to combat a Columbus, Ohio, or an East Lansing, Michigan. Now, why would they need Salt Lake City? There's not a reason there. And for Utah, you have the AAU status, but so does like a Baylor, right? There are plenty of AAU schools at this point. And the revenue that Utah has brought in, it wasn't there this year because they were bad at football. They were bad at men's basketball. They didn't have a leg to stand on in the Big 12 conference. So why would the Big 10, that values itself more than the Big 12, want to take a risk like that? They wouldn't do it unless there's a package with it, or if Utah, and we can get into this, and I'm sure we will, took less of a share. I mean, from your chair, TJ, you've been covering the expansion realignment news for the last 3-4 years as this cycle relays every year. Utah couldn't take a full share in the Big Ten. There's really no way, right?
Well, I mean, they would take it. I just don't think it would be offered to them, right?
Yeah, Utah would take it. There's no way they could get there with a full share.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing to me, right? Is if Oregon, and Oregon was in a little bit more of a desperate situation because they were still in the Pac-12 at that time when it was alive, and they had to go somewhere. So maybe but maybe their back was up against the wall a bit. But my thought is that if they didn't offer Oregon a full share, right? And I'm not trying to crap on Utah or anything like that. Like, that's not my point. I mean, there are Florida State fans that are saying, dude, I'd take a 75% share right now to the Big Ten and not even think twice about it. And so if a Florida State would potentially be open to a less than 1 share, if an Oregon who has competed for national championships, right, and been in the playoff multiple times, if they're good with a partial share, there's no way that Utah would go in thinking they could I mean, I'd be even surprised at a half share feels like the absolute pinnacle, the absolute best they could get. But I mean, would you even be shocked if it was like 33%? And we saw SMU go to the ACC for 0. And I'm not saying that's what Utah would do, but if you're the Big Ten looking to add teams and you got to bring in a Miami at a 75, 100% share, or you could take Utah at 33, 25, somewhere in there. And I'm not saying I'm not Jim Williams, right? I don't have the insight. I don't have the inside sources on what these Big Ten folks are saying. But I think if you're the Big Ten, you at least do look at that and say, like, Miami at 75, Utah at 25, like, maybe we have something here. So, but yeah, I'd be shocked if they were offered a full share. Even again, a half share feels like the absolute max. You gave Oregon a half share.
Yeah.
Is Utah fitting the same bill? And again, this is not to crap on Utah. I know a lot of Big 12 fans. I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts. Is Utah worthy of the same share that Oregon just got? I don't know.
Well, the question was posed on another podcast, and I wish I remembered the name of it. Why are they looking at Utah and not BYU? And that's a real thing that has to be considered in this expansion talk, is that now BYU, with the resources of a Power 4 conference, has started to overshadow Utah. Utah fans want to push back about that and say, oh, well, historically, we've dominated BYU. Yeah, but we're talking about today. Recency bias is really the only bias when it comes to expansion and realignment. What have you done for me lately? There's a reason Washington was so enticing. They were going to the national championship. They were elevated at football. The Big Ten wanted that. USC, UCLA, hand over fist, they make money because they're in Los Angeles. And now BYU has raised millions of dollars. They're paying a basketball player $3.5 million, who's not even a top 25 returning player in the country, just for him to come do a little hoops in Provo. How are they not more enticing? They have a religion tied to what they do. They're the flagship university of one of the fastest growing faiths in the world. So their NIL, they're good. Their football was exponentially better than Utah last year, winning 11 games. Their men's basketball is one of the top in the Big 12, ended up going to having a run in the NCAA tournament to the Sweet 16. So why would the Big Ten look at Utah as a more valuable school than that? Again, this is not to just pile on for Utah, but there's another university 40 minutes down the road that's doing everything right currently. So the Big Ten should look there first. I don't know why they would need Utah or what Utah would do to be a world beater in the conference. They might just be another Maryland. They might just be another Illinois. Illinois is good at men's basketball. They're a big state school, but does the Big Ten really need Indiana, especially when football is not good? I don't know. Utah might just be another version of that.
I want to ask big picture about the Big 12. If something like this was to happen, if you're watching this, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel that you're watching at this moment. But is there a concern that the Big 12 could have other teams jump out too? Like, could the ACC go after like a UCF, which maybe makes a little bit more sense geographically? Could the Big 10 go after, I don't know, a team in Texas like Texas Tech, who certainly is going to pony up the resources to compete on a national level, it seems, with their NIL? I'm not trying to mention other names. Kansas, could they be a target for the SEC with their basketball prowess as the conference there continues to try and dominate that landscape? Like, is there a concern at all that if Utah was to go, if maybe BYU is considered, like you just kind of mentioned, that other teams could kind of get cherry picked off too?
I don't think so. And it's kind of a mundane, stupid answer, but I don't foresee right now the Big 12's individual teams having enough star power and enough security financially for the Big Ten to need them, for the SEC to need them. And I think that need word is very special in this conversation. Brett Yormark talks about we'll advance, we'll add new teams when we need them. I think the ACC, they need whatever they can get, but that spot of desperation is not going to be enticing for a UCF, for a West Virginia. I think the Big 12 has an upper hand in adding a Pitt more so than the ACC does, adding the Mountaineers. So I don't, even if Utah pushes the needle with this, moves on to the Big 10, I'm not sure if there's another Big 12 team, at least from what they voiced in their athletic departments, that would target a move.
Yeah, makes sense.